Well, let's take a view on China now, which is one of Venezuela's biggest allies, and it's condemned the US action. Beijing says it violates international law and the country's sovereignty.
外交部发言人昨天表示，中方对美方
China is deeply shocked and strongly condemns the US blatant use of force against a sovereign state and action against its president. Such hegemonic acts of the US seriously violates international law, Venezuela's sovereignty, and threatens peace and security in Latin America and the Caribbean region.
Over to Shanghai in China now, where we can get more from Sean Rain. He's the founder and managing director of the China Market Research Group, which is a market intelligence firm focused on China. Sean, welcome. So Beijing says this needs to be resolved through dialogue and through negotiation, that Mauduro should be released, but that is clearly not going to happen, and China knows that. So how will the administration there be looking to shape Venezuelan relations, given it is the biggest buyer of Venezuelan oil?
It's good to be here, Nick. I think China has said very strong condemnation of the United States, and they're working with other Latin American and Caribbean countries to say this isn't right. This sets a very dangerous precedent, not just in Latin America, but also throughout the world. What if a president doesn't like what President Trump wants? Does that mean the United States can just kidnap and hold hostage the president, plunder the natural resources? You know, again, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. So it's clear that this is about oil, that this is about power, this is about a Trump replacing the Monroe Doctrine with the Trump Doctrine to say that the United States is the only player that has the right to decide what's going to happen in its hemisphere. It's a very dangerous precedent. Now, what is China going to do? There's not a lot of things that China can do, frankly. It doesn't have the military power.
Wrong.
Or it only has 2 military bases outside of the United States, while America has 800. Historically, China is not warlike. They have not shot a single bullet outside of its borders in the last 40 years. So I think, frankly, at the end of the day, China is just going to make proclamations criticizing the United States actions, but they're not going to push back with military action, and they're probably not going to push back with economic sanctions.
Wrong.
So frankly, China is just going to have to sit and wait and try to build a coalition to criticize Trump in these actions, because this sets very dangerous precedent.
Right. Well, it will have to move diplomatically at some point, presumably, because if a more, let's say, a more US-friendly government materializes out of this whole business in Venezuela, China will need to recalibrate, right?
It will have to recalibrate, and you're already starting to see that in Latin America over the last couple months since Trump came to power. Relations with Trinidad have gotten a lot colder. Relations with Mexico have gotten a lot colder. So China was really building a bulwark into Latin America over the last 4 years, with a lot of Latin American leaders saying, we don't like Biden, we didn't like Trump 1.0, we want to move closer to China's orbit. But what you've seen in the last 6 months, Nick, is Trump has made big stands in Latin America, with Panama, with Mexico, with Trinidad, all criticizing their close relations with China. So all of these countries are now nervous about whether or not their leaders are going to be held hostage and kidnapped the way Mauduro was. I've been speaking with a lot of political leaders the last 24 hours, and they're worried that they might be next if they go against the United States. Because again, China, I don't think, has the military power to really, or the desire to push back against the United States right now.
All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Makor Kudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. All right, so as you can see, China has now responded to the kidnapping or the capture of President Maduro over there in Venezuela. All right, once again, China being an ally, a business partner, as it pertains to international trade with Venezuela. So, of course, they're going to have an opinion and, be presented with if they're going to act or respond to this militarily or not, Russia as well. And, they released a statement today. China urges U.S. to stop toppling Venezuelan government and to release President Maduro. All right. It says China has called on the United States to immediately release Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro after Washington carried out massive military strikes on the capital, Caracas, as well as other regions, and abducted the leader. All right, and this is some, real war. All right, they went over there and they abducted the leader, man. And of course, Nero 47 wants to put, someone over there in power that, the U.S. can manipulate. First and foremost, get control over those natural resources over there in Venezuela and put someone in power that they can manipulate to do their bidding, whether it be, internationally, mainly internationally as far as the trade. All right, because if they are successful with this, now Russia and China have to answer to America as far as all of the natural resources that they were trading with Venezuela. All right, the relationship that they have with President Maduro, of course, will be different than the relationship they have with whoever the United States puts in place over there. All right, and these nations reacting, as Russia reacted as well, and China, these, being two superpowers on the earth right now, proves or shows that, Habakkuk 2 is speaking, man. All right. Woe unto him that increaseth that which is not his. Shall they not take up a taunting proverb against thee? All right. Because the whole world is reacting to this. Russia and China just being the major players. It says China, Beijing on Sunday insisted the safety of Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, be a priority and called on the U.S. to stop toppling the government of Venezuela, calling the attack a clear violation of international law. Which, this place, all right, Babylon, they're not bound to any treaty or type of international law. All right, they may say they are and agree in the moment, but of course they will, break any type of truce, man, if it's in their interest. Their interest being the natural resources over there in Venezuela and gaining control of those resources to, continue to jock for position as far as international trade, man. All right, it was the second statement issued by China since Saturday after U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington had taken Maduro and his wife and flown them out of the country. On Saturday, Beijing slammed the U.S. for hegemonic acts and blatant use of force against Venezuela and its president, urging Washington to abide by the the United Nations Charter. China is closely watching developments in Venezuela, according to Andy Mock, a senior researcher fellow at the Center for China and Globalization. Says Mock told Al Jazeera that a Chinese delegation had met Venezuelan officials just hours before U.S. action, adding that Beijing was not surprised by Washington's move, given the scale of U.S. strategic and economic interests in the region. All right, the economic interest just being the oil and the natural resources. All right. What did stand out, he said, was how the operation was carried out, as it may represent the long-term U.S. strategy in the region. It says China is Venezuela's largest buyer of oil, Mock added, although the country accounts for only 4 to 5% of its total oil imports. Beyond energy, he said, China has growing trade and investment interests across Latin America, meaning Beijing is paying close attention to political shifts in the region. And that's why Nero wants the control over there. All right. Although they say it's only 4 to 5% of oil, that'll be money coming into this place, and it would make them more of a major player as far as international trade. Right? Because this place don't produce nothing. Right? If you look at most of the products that you have is made in China. It's made in, on the eastern part of the world. All right. So these nations are just jockeying for position. It says Mock warned that if a future U.S. administration were to revive a Monroe Doctrine style policy, it could increase tensions with China, as Latin America is a pillar of China's global South strategy. All right, and it will intensify. All right, these nations are going to continue, more tension and more tension amongst the nations until ultimately World War III is in full effect. All right. When you look at Russia, they're just a little bit more aggressive in how they verbalize their problems with America. All right, China not so much, but Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to put the spirit on all these nations, even the allies of this place, to turn on this place, man. All right. It says, still China is likely to limit its response to the events in Venezuela to diplomatic protest rather than hard power, according to China-based analyst Sean Reen. I think China has issued a very strong condemnation of the United States, and they're working with other Latin American and Caribbean countries to say this isn't right. Rain, founder of China Market Research Group, told Al Jazeera. Rain said Beijing is deeply alarmed but constrained, and its options are limited. There's not a lot of things China can do. Frankly, it doesn't have the military power. It only has 2 military bases outside of China, while America has 800, Rain noted, stressing that historically China is not warlike, all right? But Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to put the spirit on all these nations to ultimately shoot nukes at this place, man. All right, that's what the prophecy reads. So it doesn't matter how aggressive, whether it be China or any of these nations have been with this place in the past, the Most High is going to put the spirit on them, all right, to get more aggressive, man. All right, China is just going to make proclamations criticizing the United States' actions, but they're not going to push back with military action, and they're probably not going to push back with economic sanctions. All right, this is the confidence that the American people or these analysts have in the United States, military. But these nations have gotten stronger as far as their artillery. So they're not afraid, man. All right. Especially Russia being, aggressive. All right. But, everybody will eventually follow suit. It says world reaction has poured in since the U.S. military action in Venezuela with option firmly split over the intervention. Left-leaning regional leaders, including those of Brazil, Colombia, Chile, and Mexico, have largely denounced Maduro's ouster, while countries with right-wing governments from Argentina to Ecuador have largely welcomed it. North Korea denounced the U.S. strikes on Venezuela, saying the act is the most serious form of encroachment of sovereignty, state news agency KCNA said on Sunday. The incident is another example that clearly confirms once again the rogue and brutal nature of the United States, KCNA said, citing a spokesperson for North Korea's foreign ministry. All right, rogue and brutal nature. All right, meaning they don't be going rogue, meaning they doing their own thing, they're not following none of the international law. All right, and that brutal nature being their military action. These nations are now calling it out, and they're not being quiet about it. All right, South Korea also responded on Sunday, calling for a de-escalation of tensions. Our government urges all involved parties to make utmost efforts towards easing regional tensions. Hope for a quick stabilization of the situation, or pardon me, stabilization of the situation via dialogue, ensuring democracy is restored and the will of the Venezuelan people is honored. Its Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, and that's not gonna happen. We would be no peace, man. Like First Thessalonians 5:3, when they shall say peace and safety, then comes sudden destruction. All right, because if you notice, it's been all this peace talk going on for years. All right, but it's still wars going on in the world, man. All right, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is not going to have these nations come and sit down and have some peaceful meeting where it's peace on earth. It's not going to happen. All right, the nations are too greedy for that. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on Sunday said he backed a peaceful democratic transition of power in Venezuela, but urged that international law be respected. His government was monitoring developments, he said in a statement. Venezuela has been increasingly isolated, particularly after Maduro's contested election in 2024. All right, so, as you can see, man, things are just going to continue to escalate. All right, this place is not going to answer to any type of international law that, as it was mentioned earlier. All right, they have an imperialistic mindset. When they see something they want, they go get it. And if they gotta, if they gotta, break international law, put boots on the ground, drop bombs from the sky, they gonna do it. All right. So once again, the tensions are going. God damn it, the tensions are gonna continue to escalate, and Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is gonna put the spirit on these nations to really come at this place. All right, because just look at the media. More and more tension, more and more disapproval of America's dealings internationally. All right, so this is eventually gonna turn into World War III, man. As the scriptures say, the third woe cometh quickly. All right, but I ain't gonna hold you. I hope that video was edifying. Shalom.